Let's get started. Number 6. High heels. Picture a man riding a horse hundreds of years ago, looking extremely serious, extremely powerful, and most importantly, wearing heels. Yes, heels. Today, high heels are strongly associated with women, fashion shows, red carpets, and the ancient human tradition of voluntarily putting your feet through a medieval torture device just to look taller. But high heels were originally useful to men, particularly Persian cavalrymen. The heel helped a rider keep his foot securely in the stirrup while riding. When you're charging around on horseback with a weapon in your hand, having your foot slide out of the stirrup is slightly more inconvenient than getting a bad review on your outfit. Eventually, heels became fashionable among European aristocratic men. One of the most famous fans was King Louis XIV of France, who famously used high heels to appear taller and more imposing. His shoes could even feature elaborate decorations because apparently, ruling France wasn't enough of a flex. And then fashion did what fashion does best. It looked at something practical, made it ridiculously expensive, and changed who was expected to wear it. Over time, high heels became increasingly associated with women, while men's fashion moved toward flatter shoes. So the next time someone says heels are women's shoes, history quietly clears its throat. They started as a practical tool for men on horseback and eventually became a symbol of feminine fashion. Basically, your stilettos have a surprisingly masculine resume. Number 5. Wigs. Imagine being a powerful European man in the 17th century. You're wealthy, you have servants, you're attending important meetings, you're making serious political decisions, and on your head is an enormous pile of artificial hair. This wasn't unusual. Wigs became hugely fashionable among European men, especially aristocrats and members of the upper classes. One major reason was hair loss and scalp problems, which were not exactly easy to manage before modern medicine and modern shampoo. King Louis XIII of France reportedly wore a wig after experiencing premature hair loss, and the fashion spread through the French court. Then Louis XIV helped turn elaborate wigs into a major status symbol. Suddenly, the bigger and more ridiculous your hair looked, the more important you could appear. The style spread across Europe, and wealthy men wore increasingly elaborate wigs made from human or animal hair. Eventually, wigs became strongly associated with formal professions. Judges, lawyers, and other officials in Britain still wear ceremonial wigs today, because apparently certain legal arguments become 14% more authoritative when delivered beneath several kilograms of powdered hair. Over time, wigs became increasingly associated with women in popular culture and fashion, especially as women's hairstyles became more elaborate. But historically, the giant powdered wig was absolutely not some invention designed specifically for women. Men wore them proudly, they powdered them, they decorated them, they spent ridiculous amounts of money on them. Basically, before men decided that having a beard was enough hair-based decoration, some of them were walking around with entire architectural projects attached to their skulls. Fashion history is weird, and your modern hairstyle preferences are looking considerably more reasonable right now. Number 4. Handbags. Here's something that makes absolutely no sense. You can give a man a giant backpack containing a laptop, 3 chargers, a water bottle, headphones, snacks, a mysterious cable from 2014, and possibly a small screwdriver, and nobody cares. But give a woman a handbag slightly larger than a sandwich, and suddenly society has questions. The funny part is that bags carried by men are hardly a new invention. For centuries, men carried pouches, satchels, belt bags, and various forms of containers to transport money, documents, tools, weapons, food, and other objects that become extremely inconvenient when your pockets are approximately the size of a postage stamp. And as clothing changed, especially in Europe, men increasingly got built-in pockets while women's clothing often didn't. That created one of fashion history's strangest inequalities. Men got convenient storage sewn directly into their clothes, while women were frequently expected to carry separate bags. Handbags eventually became heavily associated with women, particularly as fashion transformed bags from simple containers into accessories. And now we've reached the modern situation where a woman can carry an entire emergency department in a purse, while a man will proudly carry his phone, wallet, and keys in his hands because apparently pockets are an advanced technology. The irony is that the basic concept of a handbag isn't inherently feminine at all. It's just a portable container. Human beings have needed portable containers since approximately 5 minutes after discovering that carrying everything in your arms is a terrible logistics strategy. So no, the handbag wasn't born from some mysterious feminine need to carry 17 lip products. People have always needed bags. Fashion just decided who was allowed to make them look fabulous. Number 3. Makeup. You probably picture a woman leaning into a mirror with a mascara wand when you think makeup, but ancient Egyptian men were out here caking on eyeliner before women even got a say in the matter. Kohl, that thick black eyeliner look everyone associates with Cleopatra, was worn by Egyptian men and women alike, not for beauty points, but because they genuinely believed it protected their eyes from infections and blocked the sun's glare like ancient sunglasses. Basically, it was sunscreen, with better PR. Roman men wore powders and creams too, because looking pale and polished signaled wealth-tanned skin meant you worked outside like a peasant. Somewhere along the timeline, cultural gatekeeping decided makeup was too feminine for men and rebranded the entire practice as a women's activity, even though its earliest fans had beards. Your notion of makeup as a girly ritual is basically a few thousand years of marketing amnesia. The eyeliner didn't change society's opinion of who's allowed to wear it, did. Number 2. Jewelry. For thousands of years, men have been wearing jewelry, and nobody thought it was particularly strange. In fact, some of history's most powerful men practically turned themselves into walking treasure chests. Ancient Egyptian men wore rings, bracelets, necklaces, earrings, and decorative amulets. Roman men wore rings to display wealth and social status. Kings and aristocrats across Europe covered themselves in gold, gemstones, metals, chains, and other shiny objects. Jewelry wasn't simply decoration. It could communicate power, wealth, religious beliefs, military achievements, family connections, or social position. A giant gold necklace could basically function as an ancient status update. I am extremely important. No, seriously, look at my necklace. Even wedding rings, which are now commonly associated with both men and women, have a complicated history stretching back thousands of years. The modern idea that jewelry is primarily feminine developed much later and varied enormously between cultures. Men's fashion in many historical periods was actually far more decorative than modern Western menswear. Then things changed. Western male fashion gradually became more restrained, especially during the 19th century. Dark suits, simpler accessories, and understated clothing became associated with masculinity. Meanwhile, jewelry increasingly became marketed toward women, and suddenly, a man wearing multiple rings could be perceived as unusually fashionable, rebellious, or suspiciously interested in accessories. But your ancient ancestors would probably find that hilarious. They might look at a modern man wearing a tiny metal watch and wonder why he's being so conservative. Basically, jewelry didn't become feminine. Men just collectively decided to stop wearing quite so much of it. Number 1. The high ponytail. There is something wonderfully ironic about the modern ponytail. It looks effortless. Tie your hair back, and suddenly you're ready for school, work, exercise, errands, or pretending you didn't spend 20 minutes deciding what to do with your hair. But tying long hair back for practical reasons is hardly a female invention. Men throughout history have worn their hair long and tied it back. Ancient warriors, soldiers, nobles, laborers, and members of different cultures have used tied hairstyles for convenience, tradition, identity, or status. The samurai of Japan famously wore hairstyles involving tied hair, including forms associated with the top knot. Ancient Greek and Roman men could also wear longer hair, sometimes tying or arranging it. And the reason is pretty obvious. Hair gets in the way. If you're fighting, riding, working, traveling, or simply trying to see what you're doing, having your hair repeatedly attack your face is not ideal. So people tied it back. Eventually, Western fashion increasingly favored shorter hairstyles for men, especially from the 18th and 19th centuries onward. Women retained more freedom to wear long hair, elaborate hairstyles, braids, buns, and ponytails. The result is the modern assumption that tying your hair back is somehow a specifically feminine thing. But your ancestors would probably laugh at that. A ponytail isn't feminine. It's gravity management. Your hair is trying to fall into your face, and you're simply filing an official complaint. And honestly, after thousands of years of human history, that's probably one of the most universal fashion decisions we've ever made. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe.